Hello. Last week there was a very good sale. It was all the contents of one stately residence, and there were expensive bits and there were cheap bits. One of the most overlooked lots, which potentially could have been very cheap, but sadly wasn't, was a little lot of flatware, a couple of sauce ladles and a sifting spoon, very encouragingly estimated £70 to £100. Sadly, I was not the only person to spot them, and many multiples of that estimate was paid for, a pair of sauce ladles and a sifting spoon. And I can tell you now, the sifting spoon was not a special thing. It was lovely, beautifully made, but not special. The special thing were these, and they are sauce ladles. And you will notice for English sauce ladles, they are a slightly unusual pattern, and we will get to that. But the most interesting thing, or one of the most interesting things, are the hallmarks on the reverse. And you'll notice, and we'll look at these in close-up as well, we might zoom in there. There are two maker's marks, because it represents a partnership, that of Matthew Bolton and John Fothergill, who obviously were the sort of leading silversmiths working at the very beginning of the Birmingham assay office. In fact, Bolton basically helped to establish it in 1773. These ladles are dated 1776 to 1777. The date letter changed in July each year. And they are very rare. It is not often you find flatware by Matthew Bolton and John Fothergill. Bolton's large manufactory specialised in candlesticks and all manner of mass-produced things, but the hand making of flatware was still very much a London specialty. He could do it, as you can see by these, beautifully made. They're nice and heavy. You'll notice the heel of this is finished quite unusually. You sort of got that sort of chamfering either side. That's unusual. You wouldn't see that on a London one. And this pattern, this sort of French fiddle with this border, this sort of reeded and tied ribbon border. And what's lovely as well, and we might be able to see this, fantastic coats of arms. And what do I always say? It's normally crests on smaller pieces, but these are coats of arms. Now, I wasn't just excited to buy these because they're by Bolton and Fothergill and they're very early in the life of the Birmingham assay office. I bought them because the arms, and I hope you can see this, are in a particular shaped cartouche. They're in a diamond shape. We'll look at that in close-up as well, in a diamond-shaped cartouche. Now, Matthew Bolton had one very famous and very well-documented client at this period, for whom he specifically made a very fine service of table silver, tureens, plates, serving dishes. And it was the famous blue stocking, Elizabeth Montigue. A blue stocking. The blue stockings, if you don't know, and you can go and Google this, I won't bore you to death with it, but they were sort of leading female academics within the Enlightenment at the end of the 18th century. And they basically advocated intellectual study for women. They were groundbreaking. They had meetings with all the great and the good. They had dinners with all the great and the good to promote their cause. And in fact, that is why this service was ordered from Bolton. In the Birmingham assay office, there is a catalogue of silver at the Birmingham assay office, produced a few years ago. They actually have two of the tureens, splendid things, made for Lady Elizabeth Montague, and it is these ladles are made for her at the same time and as part of the same order, which she put in 1776 initially. But Matthew Bolton being Matthew Bolton, he had all sorts of problems and difficulties, and it wasn't until the beginning of 1777 that the first parts of this order were supplied. One of the delays, or at least this is what Bolton said at the time, was that his chief engraver was off sick, and he didn't have, whilst he could make the objects like this, he didn't have the opportunity to engrave Elizabeth Montague's arms, and she'd sent a copy of her coat of arms to Bolton, and her only instruction was that upon the death of her much older husband, he was in his 80s and she was just getting into her 50s when he died. Wonder what he died of. That it be placed in this shield, which is for a widow's shield. And she requested that her coat of arms be engraved on every piece, which is why you've got a coat of arms on a serving piece where normally you would have just a family crest. What's interesting, I mean, I was very anything from this service is now really in a museum, and it's all large pieces, dishes, plates, things that are many, if not multiples of thousands of pounds, tens of thousands of pounds. But smaller pieces like this rarely turn up. And the reason is that whilst Mrs. Montague was Lady Montague, I shouldn't call her Mrs. Montague, that's disrespectful, isn't it? Whilst Lady Montague liked silver of the latest French design, that's why we've got this pattern. This is a very French design of the period, not English, but made in Birmingham, from Bolton, the large pieces. She refurbished her husband's flatware, and she used Parker and Wakelin, and then latterly Wakelin and Taylor, to do that for her. She saw no need. Bolton tried to sell her some more spoons, knives and forks, but she was having none of it. She was just getting the old stuff fixed, so she obviously was quite canny. The only exception being a pair of asparagus tongs that we know she ordered, a soup ladle that we know that she ordered, and of course, if you can ever find them, and believe me, I was doing cartwheels when I did, the sauce ladles for the sauce tureens or the sauce boats. And only 2 of those, 8 were ordered, 8 sauce boats, only 2 have surfaced. So these are the ladles for the 2 sauce boats that we know of. I haven't seen any other ladles. I've not seen any reference to them. They are fantastically rare. And the reason why it sort of brings these to life is we know that Lady Montague entertained as a blue stocking these wonderful events, and the great and the good of London were invited. Dr. Johnson was invited. Joshua Reynolds, Sir Joshua Reynolds, the great artist, was there. Boswell came with Johnson. She entertained royalty. Queen Charlotte and the princesses came to dine with her. The actor David Garrick was a prominent blue stocking and often dined with her. And the thing that all these people will have had in common is when they were served their meal in courses à la Française, and the way we are served our meals today is à la Russe, which is one course is brought out and then it's consumed and the dishes are taken away. À la Française, a table is laid out with a variety of dishes. You'd be seated round the table and you would help yourself. Think of it slightly as a buffet. But the point is, when you added either your bread sauce for game or your very rich veal sauce for some of the fishes, or your butter sauce for some of the seafood, you will have picked up these ladles and placed that on your dish yourself. So it is not likely, but certain, that these will have been used over 250 years ago by Dr. Johnson, by David Garrick, by Queen Charlotte. This was Elizabeth Montague's best service. It is the one that she always used for these diners. So when we look at bits of silver, and I look at these, and I'm enthralled by the marks. I love the fact it's early Birmingham silver. That's the first thing that got me into it. I love the way that they are made. They are heavy. They are a very unusual pattern that you wouldn't normally find in English silver. It's ticking a lot of boxes, isn't it? But then you find out they're from one of the most important services that Bolton ever supplied to Lady Elizabeth Montague, and these objects will have been in the hands of some of the most important historical characters at the end of the 18th century. Sometimes you can't say that, but with certainty you can say it about these, because we have the records of the guests she invited, of the meals she gave, and of the silver that she bought. And what's also tremendously exciting is, whilst there are plates and there are dishes and there are tureens, and most of them are in museums now, let me stress that, there was almost no new flatware. But here they are. They're one of the most exciting historical bits of silver I've found in many, many years. And I'm absolutely thrilled to own them, which of course makes it all the more difficult in possibly parting with them, which at the moment I can't quite bring myself to do. Not a terribly good antiques dealer, but there we go. I'll do a little, very quick close-up to show you the marks, and more importantly show you the lovely engraved armorials of Lady Elizabeth Montague. One side is for Montague, one side, who was her husband, and one side is for Robinson, which was her maiden name. So we'll look at that. One last thing before I go, utterly commercial, switch off now if you'd like. I have written this. And as you can see, it is called As Found, A Lifetime in Antiques. Well, it feels like it. Not dead yet, but it feels like it. And it's a book, and whilst I am featured in it because I wrote it and it's about my life, it is my life in antiques. So it is not my personal life that would make even the most avid fan fall asleep, but it is misadventures in the world of antiques and all the characters I've met. It is available on Amazon. If you like to buy books on Amazon, I think it's even cheaper. Jeff Bezos has relinquished some of his commission to make it even more affordable, which is wonderful, isn't it? Absolutely wonderful. Or you can definitely get a copy at yorkbookshop.com. Search for the title and it will come up. It's a couple of quid more there because obviously Mr. Bezos is not involved in that transaction. And much to my surprise, even though it was only released at the weekend, copies are going fast. I know. I'm more surprised than you are, but there are just a few left at the moment. We will do a reprint if there is, 100,000 people want them. Who am I to say no? But at the moment, if you want one and you want one in the next week or so, I'd go and order it, because we will unfortunately run out for a bit. So that's ruthless commercialism. It's quite a thick book, you see. Quite a thick book. Value for money. It's less than 60p a chapter. You can't beat that, can you? But very pleased to show you these. I say each week, hopefully something better, hopefully something more interesting. Well, believe me, these are better and these are interesting. You will go a long way to find a more interesting bit of 18th century English silver on the market at the moment. Even though people have things, 6 foot high, covered in gold and weighing 700 ounces, give me those any day of the week. So until next week, I'm not going to top those for a long, long time. Something less interesting and less special next week. But until then, good antiques hunting and goodbye.